How do you know that your thoughts in your head are your own? Do you know definitively that they are? I'm going to give you a story. When I was in my 20s, I went to a music festival with an old boyfriend of mine. And I wasn't into substances or drugs or anything at the time, but he sometimes would experiment with things. And he managed to find some pretty high quality Mdma, and we took it. I tried it, I trusted him, and it had a very marked effect on me. In fact, I think it has opened me up to an awareness of things that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I'm not specifically recommending it, I'm just saying this was its effect on me, and not everybody has the same experience. This particular dosage's effect on me was that I felt like I'd had a screen or a shield over my head, over my brain, keeping my thoughts inside. What this MDMA did was it opened up that satellite. It opened up the shield. So it wasn't just my thoughts. I was able to accept or receive. I'm going to use receive. I was able to receive others. You could call it psychic if you like, but it was definitely not voluntary. It was involuntary. I would be thinking something, and then something from outside that wasn't mine would be in there, not mine. At the time, I knew what my own thoughts feel like. I think I still do. I know what my thoughts feel like. And to describe what it's like when you're looking at or getting or receiving a thought, it just feels other. It feels other. It's out of character, like deeply out of character. At the time, I don't think my character has changed much, but we happened to be in a busy field full of people. I think it was an old apple farm in South Africa, Grabo area, I think. And there were loads of people walking around, loads and loads and loads of people. And I happened to be in a tent. And I was just thinking my own thoughts and, little queries in my head. And then all of a sudden, I got a really sort of low, dark vibe or feeling about women or females. It was low and it was dark. And it had a, I don't have the word now, but it was basically quite an aggressive feeling towards females or a female, not me in particular. Where this feeling was coming from did not know me in particular, but there was a very, I'm going to say cold and maybe dangerous or aggressive. Aggressive is safe to say. Aggressive feeling towards a female or females that I didn't know. It was very cold, and I looked up, and there were these two guys walking past the opening of the tent, and they were deep in conversation, and they seemed very basically, if they were walking towards a female friend that I knew, I would worry for her. They were very much in their own heads with each other talking, and it almost seemed like they were plotting, or not plotting, but just building up very negative feelings about a female or females. Not me, it was somebody else. It was not, I didn't know them. And it was clear that maybe the thought that I'd been thinking, or the feeling that I'd had, was not connected to them. But they just appeared at the same time, and they matched. They matched. And I remember thinking, that thought or that feeling that I had was not mine. It's not mine. It doesn't feel like mine. The flavor of the thought. I'm going to use the flavor because I don't have another word in English to describe like flavor or signature, like your signature scent, but like there's a feeling to the thoughts that and things that come from you that are unique to you. And what I was experiencing here was not of mine and didn't feel comfortable in my own head. It was very out of character. And then further on, coming into when we'd finished this music festival, we managed to get back into the city, and I needed to start work sometime that evening. I think I was waitressing. And we got in on a Monday morning, and I didn't need to work until much later, or maybe a different day in the week. So we got in on Monday morning, and as we were coming in, we stopped at a garage to get some snacks or get something to drink. And I walked out of the car, and this woman was walking past me. And she was dressed for work. She was she was doing the day. She hadn't been on any holiday. She hadn't been to the music festival. She was in the city and she was going to work. And as she walked past me, I got this wave of anxiety and worrying about her kids. She's worried. There's a concern about her kids. She was just very anxious, and things were insecure. I don't know if she had support, I didn't get details, but it was just as she was walking past me. And this was like 2 days, a day and another day after taking the Mdma initially. And I was just like, when is this going to stop? When is when is my shield? When is my thought shield? When is my brain shield going to retract and close up so that the thoughts and feelings that I'm thinking are mine from my own head, from myself, and I'm not receiving other people's? These are 2 examples. First the boys and now this woman. These were clear ones. But there was stuff going on. I would be thinking things and other things would be coming in too. And it was exhausting. I was really exhausted. after that episode. And I remember thinking, wow, like this was a real eye-opener, also a brain opener. And I don't know if I could do that on the frequent. I couldn't do that frequently. MDMA is definitely not addictive because it has such an effect that you are exhausted afterwards. And I think in some cases, I'm not sure about dosages, but you would need some time to recover. I needed a couple of months to recover. I don't regret taking it because it gave me an awareness that I didn't have before. I'm not saying I'm psychic, but I can feel things out more sensitively than before. And I get, especially if I'm close to a person, I can feel out their emotional, the best word is vibe or environment, or their aura, or I don't know. We don't have enough particular words in English for this to express what I'm trying to say. Maybe we need to make them. As a side note, there were some other things that I experienced during the MDMA episode. I've always been a curious person in my mind, and I asked a question. I noticed that if I asked a question in my head, an answer not of mine would come immediately, like broadband clarity. And I asked a couple questions, and one of the first questions I asked was my cat. I had a cat before when I was a kid, and she died. Of course, they don't live as long as we do, and I always wondered, like, what happens to them? Like, there's all this stuff about us, right, in the Bible. Oh, we go to heaven, we go this, that, the other thing, fine. But that's just for us. Like, what about the other creatures? Like, what happens to them? And I asked, okay, so what happened to my cat after she died? Where is she around? Is she? And the answer was immediate. The answer was, she's in the system. She's still here. She's still herself. She's in the system. But she's assigned. She's already assigned to another assignment. So she's not here, not right with you, or not around here, not near to talk to you. But she's in the system. She's just on another assignment. That was the answer. At the time also, I was deeply in love with the guy that I was with. And another question that I asked was, will we always be together? And the answer was no. No, you won't. That made me very sad. In fact, he came into the tent a little while after that, and I just looked up at him and I started crying. And he was like, baby, what's wrong? And I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell him. Another thing was, later on I was walking around outside, and I looked up at the stars. And now in this area of South Africa, you can see the stars. It is beautiful. There's stars everywhere. And I looked up at the stars, and I didn't so much ask a question. I was just sort of wondering, like, who else is out there? What else is out there? And as I looked up, the sheer scale and weight of aliveness and consciousness out there sort of radiated down on me, and I was just like, oh wow, it is teeming up there, or wherever that is, wherever or what up there, it is teeming, very busy. And you know, we don't have a lot of direct contact, but there may be reasons for that. One last thing, I was looking down at the grass for some other reason, looking at something at the grass, and there happened to be a water bottle there. I don't know if it was mine or was someone else's, and my eyes just focused on this water bottle. And I picked it up and I was just like, whoa, water. Forget about gold. This is what wars will be fought over. I don't know about now in some galaxy or some other place aside from here, but this is the single most precious substance or item here. Water, just water. And the enormity and the gravity of what I was holding in my hand. I felt like, wow, civilizations would die for this. And we just, I don't know if we realize, I think some of us realize, but many of us just like, oh, water's water, comes in, goes out. Yeah. So those were the four things. Anyway, coming back to it about the thoughts, that Mdma episode made me realize that sometimes what comes in, or what looks to be just what you're experiencing inside your head, may not always be of you, may not always be of your creation or your origin. You may not be the origin or the source of it. You know, these school shooters in America, it's been said that they're all of a similar demographic, a certain profile. They all fit a certain profile. Imagine if you're a senior or a high school student, or even a middle school student, and you don't have a lot of confidence, you're growing, you're male, you've got all these hormones racing around you, you're feeling lust from day to day, from whatever direction, you don't know how to channel it. And if you come across the wrong way to boys and girls around you, you could ruin yourself socially, you could embarrass yourself. You like girls, but you don't know how to interface or communicate with them. The world looks like it's going to shit if you look and believe the mainstream media. And your parents are probably corroborating that. And you don't see where the world's going. You don't see chances for yourself. You're not sure what you'll do after school. Are there jobs? Jobs drying up? What will you do? How will you support yourself? Will you be a winner or will you be a loser? What's the point? What's the point of being alive? Everyone's so materialistic. Everyone is always on their phone. Nobody cares about each other anymore. These are just generalizing thoughts I'm saying. I don't mean it's actually true, but generalizing thoughts that come into people's heads. Nothing's worth it anymore. What's the point? Everything is futile. Why am I even trying? Or why am I even alive? And this creates a ripe soil, a ripe, fertile environment to accept an incoming thought going, what's the point of being here? Maybe I should off myself. But what can I do to make it the most useful, a useful self-offing, shall we say that? Let's make it a useful self-offing. What can we do to make it useful, to make it worth my own DEATH? Well, maybe I could take out some people with me who I don't think are worth it, or who I think are materialistic, or haven't accepted me, or have rejected me, or have hurt me in any way before. And there's a quote, or there's like a meme out there that's with two wolves, a white wolf and a black wolf, and I don't think they mean racist. I think they're talking about, like, in terms of temperament, there are two wolves that live inside each person, each man and woman. It's the positive or the good one, and the negative or the bad one. And when they're competing with each other, one of them is going to win and become more of you. And the question is, well, how do you know which wolf is going to win? And the answer is the one you feed. The wolf you feed, the one you give more to, the one you give more attention to, the one you think more about, the one you feed with vibe or thought or energy or consideration, that's the one that grows bigger and stronger. Maybe those boys they'd given up and they were feeding the wrong wolf. I think there's a Bible quotation, is it from the Bible, that goes, beware or put a guard on your mouth or your words when you're in public, but then put a guard or a watch on your thoughts when you're alone. Never been more true, man. Never been more true. I feel like there's a Cold War going on. A Cold War, what I mean by a Cold War is an outright war is where you can see two or more factions fighting. You can see it in front of you. You can see what's going on. But a Cold War is when everything looks normal on the surface. Everything looks fine, very day-to-day, very mundane. But underneath the surface, there is a shit ton going on. There is a lot going on. So much that you don't see. I think a lot of it is electromagnetic. If you keep in mind that we're all electrical, right? I think we can safely say that. It's not a conspiracy. It's like we're all electrical beings. And you can feel the vibe of a person, okay? Their aura, their vibe, it's all electromagnetic. When people say it's all hooky stuff, or it's hippie stuff, or oh, you're out there. Basically, there's a bunch of stuff that is scientific, is based on physics, but it's probably linked to physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, all together. The way we study subjects separately in college or university is not the way they're actually tied together in real life. In real life, these things are all together, but that's not the way we study them. We separate them, so we don't see how they're connected. So I firmly feel like there are so many phenomena that people, they don't know how to describe it, and they don't know, they're terrified. Scientists are terrified to talk about certain things because they don't know how to describe it, and they're so deep in their own field, but they're unaware of what's going on in the other fields, and they don't know how they tie together, because they are tied together. So, it's a very difficult thing to try and, it's a very difficult, brave, and sometimes dangerous thing for people's careers if they talk about things that are connected like this. And ether, I think, is the element here that we're not talking about, and science today doesn't talk about it. It's the stick-togetherness part of what pulls everything together, and it's also the spiritual part too, because the spiritual, the original thought, and the field is there before material takes place around it. Have you ever seen a meiosis take place, like original reproductive cell division? In the beginning, a lot of it is just stem cells, and they're all just in one big mass. And then over time, each of those stem cells becomes a unique, functioning, different body cell, and in the areas that it's supposed to be in. What is it that's mapping them out that way? What is it that's instructing them to go, okay, you're going to be a skin cell, you keep growing there. You're going to be a bone cell, you keep growing there. You're a brain cell, stay there, keep going in this direction. What is it that's doing that? There's a field. And I think this is almost biblical, like the field is the thought. The thought, before the word was the thought, and so on and so forth. And then there's the word that says, okay, this will be the way it is. There's a field, there's an instruction, but it's in ether first, the etheric realm first. And then matter takes place. Matter takes its orders, so to speak, from this mapped out idea in the field, in the ether, if that makes any sense. So basically there's like a lot going on where it is science, it is real, it does happen, and you could probably put it down to certain parameters, but the books that we had to explain how it works either don't exist anymore, or were burned, or something happened to them, or we just can't find the material. It's not available anymore to explain it in terms that we can understand, or link up the sciences or the fields so that we can understand it holistically, rather than in depth in these little folders of knowledge. And I think this thought, like being psychic, or for me, I don't know if I'd say I'm psychic, because all this, like when a person is psychic, you get the idea that there's a consciousness to what they're doing. They're coming in with a game plan, and they're going to go, right, I'm going to get A, B, and C done. I'm going to look at this. I'm going to answer this question, la, 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 la. In my case, it's very involuntary. Stuff just comes in sometimes, and I didn't ask for it. And it's not something I'm looking for. It's something that it sort of flows in. And I could either take it and believe it, or just forget about it and go, no, that's rubbish. But basically, yeah, we're electrical. And the thoughts that we're thinking If you think in here, it's all neurons and synapses and everything. A synapse is electrically driven, right? And when we're giving off things, we're sending out a certain electromagnetic field of us. And if you have the right equipment, it can be read and mapped out. And then if you extrapolate that and do the reverse, it's also possible to map out a thought and then send it electromagnetically so that someone can receive it over there. I think that's what's happening with us. I think that's what's happening with these towers, these white boxes on top of our buildings sometimes. I think that's what's... These clouds in the sky that don't look like regular clouds anymore, that spread out and fan out and create a grey sky or a white sky for the day. And it's bright and your eyes don't feel comfortable looking up at it. And then sometimes later on in the day, you'll see a ripple effect across the whole sky. A ripple effect, like, it's very geometric. It's a radiating ripple effect. It's coming from somewhere. And we're bathing in it. And then we have these things that some of us don't turn off at night. Apparently, nighttime when you're deep in sleep is when you're most, of course, hypnotics, you're most suggestible. You're most defenseless. You're not going to critically analyze what's coming in. So whether it's the white boxy things on top of buildings, or it's this, or maybe some other device, there's beams coming out of things all the time. Do we know exactly what those beams are about? When you get a new device and there's an app or something, sorry, and there's an app or something, and then there's a big long document that if you want to use that device or that app, you need to agree to. Terms and conditions. Those terms and conditions, reading the fine print, reading all that long documentation to allow you to do something. You say, this is a disclaimer, la 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 la. It's like 16 pages long, and at the end you just either say reject or accept. And if you accept, you can use the thing, you can use the app or the device. If you reject, oh sorry, you can't. Sorry for you. Has anyone ever read through the whole document? Do you have the time to? Do you have the time, the energy, and the mental concentration, wherewithal to be able to do that in your busy working day? I'm going to bet 95% of the time, and that's a minimum, 95% of the time you don't. I don't. Who's got the time to go through all those documents? So it's probably in there somewhere, in some sort of legal jargon, nomenclature. But you just want to get something done for work, or you just want to get something done so that you can share something with another person. And now you're tied into this. You're just acquiescing, you're accepting, yes, yes, yes. It's probably all in there. We are agreeing to a lot of things that we don't know the details about. We don't know the fine print. You know that old phrase, read the fine print? Oh my God. This is huge. But the thing is, what I'm getting at here is not like, okay, now you all need to read the fine print. In our daily lives, it seems like things are worked out that we can't read the fine print. We're either too tired, or the day's been a long one. We have to prioritize what we want to get done in a day. Is reading through the 16-page document a priority when my child is hungry? No. Okay, the child being hungry is going to win and I'm going to just accept that document and move on with things, right? That's everybody. So, to a certain extent, these legal disclaimers, how seriously can we take them? It is just words on paper, isn't it? And if words on paper matter so much, maybe at some point we could create our own version to file somewhere to say what can and can't be done with us. Just an idea. Oh, side note, I don't know if you know about this, but when those terms and conditions come up, did you know that sometimes it's possible just to close the window and continue using the app anyway? Sometimes it is possible. Sometimes the app requires that you click it and accept before you can use it, but sometimes it's negligible and you just don't know that you can just skip it. So look for the little cross where you can just close it and just check. Check to see if you can close the window and continue using the app or the program anyway. Aside from that, look for a tiny little word called skip, and if you can skip it, try and do that. It's there that they're giving you the choice. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes. And updates, software and program updates on your phone and on your computer. How are you feeling about those recently? When there's an update, are you ever asked if you'd like it or not? Or is it just put on a postponement option? Like, oh, you don't want it now, but you can have it later. But you will have it at some point. Like for me, down here, this is my laptop, and normally down here in the corner, there's the option to restart. And then every now and then, there's another option, and it's update and restart. And in about 1 or 2 weeks' time, that's going to change from having those two options to just one where it's not just restart anymore, it's update and restart, and that's the only option. And also for shutdown, if I want to shut it down, it will not give me any other option but to update and shut down. There's no option to just shut down. I don't know about you guys, but I feel I feel pretty weird about this. It's a little sus. Like, there were all those terms and conditions in the beginning, and now it's almost like voting a president into office. Once he gets in, you kind of can't really stop what he does anymore. There isn't even a vote anymore. There's no referendum. We don't get referendums, not really. So the update just comes in and changes your settings and changes things that are happening on your phone and in your computer. And then all of a sudden there's a change that you didn't know about, or there's more options that you didn't know about that you need to go and uncheck for privacy settings. And there's new changes to things that you didn't really need and didn't really require, but it's suiting somebody else ultimately. That's all pretty interesting, isn't it? Just the updates alone. What are we agreeing to there? When it's just coming through, oh yes, that's the only option, yes, okay. What else? What is coming through in those updates? Because they don't really tell you. Do they? Sometimes they do, but these companies, it's almost like their presumption of your ignorance and apathy is absolute. It's pretty absolute. They're very, very, very sure that you don't need to know what they're doing on your PC or your computer, your phone. You don't need to know. It's a need-to-know basis. We're busy over here. You just keep busy with Microsoft Word there and PPT and Excel. And social media, like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and Telegram and WeChat and Xiaohongshu and basically anywhere where you can invest hours of your time comparing your life story to that of others. And so if it's possible for some technology somewhere to be able to map out whatever idea they want or whatever the feeling they want and then beam it to people out there, maybe it's whole swathes of people, groups of people, maybe it's just certain individuals in particular. If it's possible to do that, wouldn't it then be possible that all of a sudden you're feeling totally out of character? The thoughts that you happen to be thinking in any given particular day are very unwelcome. In fact, if you go online and you look up, unwelcome thoughts, it's a phenomenon. People will be just going about their regular day, then all of a sudden they're getting something that's coming in that is just, God, that's not me. That is not me. And if you are a mature, strong, and disciplined person, you're going to experience that thought and go, that's not mine. I don't know where that's coming from, but that is not me. But if you go and beam that into impressionable teenagers who are still creating their identity, still creating who they are and how they feel about themselves and what are their values, if that is still morphing, if that is still amorphous, fertile soil to beam a suggestible thought into. Very fertile soil. And I think it's been happening over there in American schools. That's why there's so many early exits. No? Another element to this to bear in mind is inebriation. What I mean by inebriation is not being sober, being drunk or being high. I understand that it's everyone's own choice what drugs or substances or alcohols or spirits they decide to put in their body. Fine. But just be aware that past a certain point, right? Past a certain point or past a certain tolerance, you could be vulnerable to suggestions, shall we say. You could be vulnerable or open to incoming. Let's just say incomings. So, yeah, just something to be aware of. And if it's possible to map out some very unwelcome thoughts, maybe people out there are not sure of what do you mean by unwelcome thoughts or uncharacteristic thoughts? I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say pedophilia. PDF files. Okay? Like that. Maybe you've never been that way inclined. All of a sudden, where'd I get that thought from? Or a very violent one. A very, very violent one about someone. Or, I would say, be very wary, be very conscious of your own thoughts and what's going on in your own head when you are out in public. Especially public, common areas where a lot of people are, like shopping malls. Shopping malls, churches, music festivals, anywhere where there's a lot of gathering of people, it's probably prime target area. Be very wary and conscious of what's going on in your own head, because I don't know about you, but I'm seeing so many videos where people are just fighting each other in public. Something random happened and they just went at each other. In this particular building, is there a beam coming in that's extreme anger or extreme aggressive suggestibility? Because if that is beaming into that building, everybody there, if they're going to be listening to their unwelcome thoughts coming in, the unwelcome thought could be something like, how dare she? She's so entitled. Why is she taking that before me? I was here first. Da 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 da. And then ramp that up 10,000, and then you're clawing at the person's hair. Keep a very close watch on the inside of your own head. Yes, be aware of what's going on outside. And we always thought that our thoughts were safe inside our own heads. I don't think this is true anymore. It's already happened. How many, I don't know, I've seen this online on certain forums in the comment sections, where you will be thinking something, just thinking something about, like, I don't know, whatever it is, okay, but you haven't mentioned this to anyone. This has only been inside your own head. You haven't spoken to family, you haven't spoken it out loud, even just talking to yourself, no. You haven't, there's been no communication, nothing out of here, right? Nothing verbal, nothing oral. But you've just been thinking it inside your own head. And then the next day, you're on social media, just pick whatever, whichever one you want. You're on social media or on your phone, and you see advertising for that exact item. Or you're thinking of an idea and articles come up associated to that idea. Is that just coincidence? Because it's happening a lot. So does that mean the technology on the receiving end is already telepathic? They can receive our thoughts. They can pick up our thoughts. It follows then that they could also send out thoughts that they want you to feel and think. Essentially mind control, right? But we are still in a position of choosing whether or not we take stock of that and believe it. We are still in a position where we have free will to choose whether to go for it or not, to pay attention to it or not, or throw it out and continue throwing it out. Sleep with one eye open, gripping your pillow tight. And another thing, I don't know if it's related, but like songs. You know, the lyrics to songs, they're so, I don't know about you, but I will hear a fantastic song, a banger, or the melody is just freaking awesome. But then you listen to the lyrics, and the lyrics are so crass and callous, and just, damn, really bottom of the barrel, like top level melody, bottom pond scum lyrics, right? And I have to really watch myself, because sometimes you'll hear a song somewhere, and if it is catchy enough, if it's a banger, my brain will take it in and listen to it, play it accurately on repeat, so much so that it will even be the background to my dreams. It's like the soundtrack while my dreams are happening. And that's pretty dangerous if you think about like the lyrics in that song. If you know the lyrics accurately and you're able to like have this whole song flow through your mind several times a day, and then in your dreams too, whatever is in those lyrics is very likely to stick. Not necessarily because you agree with those lyrics, but just because of the repetition of it, the volume of it in your head. I've been wondering even, maybe this is why, not all men, but a lot of men have got a really strange take on women and the value of women. It's not always respectful, and it's not always like seeing women as human beings. And I've been wondering, like, what are they listening to? But what have they allowed into their minds to take hold, to take footing in their minds, to grow there? It's the wolf you feed. The wolf you feed. Which wolf are you feeding? What wolf are you feeding? I think we need to be proactive. Even in here, you need to be proactive about what it is you're just even thinking from day to day. Be aware of running on automatic pilot. Automatic pilot, like when your thoughts, you're not consciously following your thoughts and your actions are just running along almost like an inactive track, like you're just going on automatic pilot, like what you would do every day, your body and your thoughts would just follow those things. What I've noticed is happening with me, and a friend of mine has also told me about something similar, is if you allow your thoughts to continue along automatic pilot, your thoughts and your body might wind up just default doing something that you didn't intend. For example, I have noticed increasingly that when I'm busy on a computer or I'm busy doing things, sometimes my mind will wander. And when I come back to it, I've deleted some things on my desktop that I actually really needed. And I have to go, oh God, or I have to recall those deleted items. And I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was just because I just thought, no, it's unnecessary. But I didn't go deeper than that, thinking, actually I need it for these other processes in the future. A friend of mine, Chinese friend of mine in Tianjin, China, one day she told me that she was going somewhere and she was just going on automatic pilot, just letting her mind wander. And at some point she sort of woke up to the fact that her body had walked down a very unfamiliar road, had taken a turn down a very unfamiliar road, and she was walking down this road that she had not intended to walk down. This is what happened on automatic pilot. Now, this is sort of very day-to-day stuff, but just imagine if you're in more compromising circumstances. We've even got to look out for what our mind is doing when we're just spinning along kind of inactively, passively. Just keep a check-in on your passive mind state. You can't just be passive about it. You can't be like, oh, what's there in the world for me to see and think about? You be careful, because the pickings are slim and very negative and very scary sometimes. Very, very scary and very depressing. You need to make your own light. Create your own light. And I know I might be sounding very hippie or, like happy, clappy Christian. I'm not Christian. I do believe in a God or source. Don't go to church. It's another congregation of people that can be beamed at. Take care. Take care, y'all. And even if you think you're not winning from day to day, things are not going well, if you can still manage to be yourself in here, you're winning one of the biggest battles from day to day. Are you still yourself at the end of the day? Do you remember all those zombie movies a while back? Are you still yourself at the end of the day? Check in. Ask yourself, is that mine? Does that feel like mine? Is that my thought? Is that me?